Jaya Radha Madhava Jabihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabihari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari. Yashodanandana Brajjana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Brajjana Ranjana. Yamunatira Vanachari. Yamunatira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabihari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Pravakacharya Astuta Shashit Srimad A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Pravakacharya Astuta Shashit Srimad Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakun Radhakun Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Maripur Dham Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Yamuna Mai Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Tulsi Devi Ki Jai, Anantakoti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Gaura Premanande. All glories to assembled devotees. All glories to assembled devotees. All glories to assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So today we'll continue reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita, 5th chapter. Text 19. If you could repeat after me. So I'm reading from my...
5th chapter, text 19?
Yeah. there's some that's going to be 251. So 519.
274. Next 19.
So we'll go word for word. Ihaiva, Tair, Jita, Sargo, Yesham, Samye, Statam, Mana, Nirdosham, Hi, Samam, Brahma, Tasmad, Brahmani, Te, Stitaha, Ihaivater Jita Sargo, Yesam Samishtam Manaha, Nirdosham Hi Samam Brahma, Tasmad Brahmani Tishtistatha, Ihaivater Jita Sargo, Yesham Samyestitam Manaha, Nirdosham Hi Samam Brahma, Tasmad Brahmani Tististataha, Ihaivater Jita Sargo, Yesham Samyestitam Manaha, Nirdosham Hi Samam Brahma, Tasmad Brahmani Tististataha. Please chant.
Ihaivater Jita Sargo,
Ihaivater Jita Sargo,
Yesam Samyestitam Manaha,
Jesam Samnistitam Manaha,
Nirdosham Hi Samam Brahma,
Nirdosham Hi Samam Brahma,
Tasmad Brahmani Te Stitaha,
Tasmad Brahmani Tistataha. Ihaivater Jita Sargo, Yesham Samyesitam Mana, Nirdosham Hi Samam Brahma, Tasmad Brahmani Tishtistaha. Mataji, do you want to try? Ihaivater Jita Sargo, Yesham Samnistitam Manaha, Nirdosham Hi Samam Brahma, Tasman Brahmani Tishtistaraha. And would you like to try?
Sure. Ihaivater Jita Sargo,
Ihaivater Jita Sargo,
Yesham Samye Sita Mana,
Shesham Samnistitam Manaha,
Nirdosham Hi Samam Brahma,
Nirdosham Hi Samam Brahma,
Tasmad Brahmani Te Stitaha.
Prasmad Brahmani Tististataha. That was very nice, thank you. Synonyms, Iha, in this life, Eva, certainly, Tahi, by them, Jitaha, conquered, Sargaha, birth and death, Yesham, whose, Samye, iniquity, Stitam, situated, Manaha, mind, Nirdosham, flawless, He, certainly, Samam, in equanimity, Brahma, like the Supreme, Tasmat, therefore, Brahmani, in the Supreme, Te, they, Stitaha, are situated. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, HG Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Those whose minds are established in sameness and equanimity have already conquered the conditions of birth and death. They are flawless like Brahman, and thus they are already situated in Brahman. Purport. Equanimity of mind, as mentioned above, is a sign of self-realization. Those who have actually attained to such a stage should be considered to have conquered material conditions, specifically birth and death. As long as one identifies with this body, he is considered a conditioned soul. But as soon as he is elevated to the stage of equanimity, through realization of self, he is liberated from the conditional life. In other words, he is no longer subject to take birth in the material world, but can enter into the spiritual sky after his death. The Lord is flawless because he is without attraction or hatred. Similarly, when a living entity is without attraction or hatred, he also becomes flawless and eligible to enter into the spiritual sky. Such persons are to be considered already liberated, and their symptoms are described below. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Mano Bishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadam Mayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sagana Ragunatam Vitamtam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabando Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavineshware Vrishabhanu Sutta Devi Pranamami Hare Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavinebhyo Vaishnabhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangam Langaiti Girim Yatkripatamaham Vande Shri Gurum Dinataranam. So I'll read the translation one more time. Those whose minds are established in sameness and equanimity have already conquered the conditions of birth and death. They are flawless like Brahman, and thus they are already situated in Brahman. Hare Krishna. Thank you for joining. My spiritual master, he would always say, there's a million things we could be doing right now, but we chose to come to this Hare Krishna temple and learn about Krishna. It's very rare. So thank you. So here it is talking about the mind. And what is the mind? Do you guys have any idea? What is the mind?
Best friend and worst enemy.
Perfect. They say that the mind, it can turn heaven into hell or hell into heaven. And a lot of people, just like there's so many people that have wealth in the world, they have all the fame, riches, followers, and these are what a lot of people, the average Joe, is, that's what he wants. Fame, wealth, followers. But if his mind isn't controlled, then it becomes his worst enemy. In the form of depression, suicide, loneliness. There are ways where the mind behaves like an enemy. And Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, he says that one must deliver himself with the help of his mind and not degrade himself. For the mind is the best friend for a conditioned soul and his enemy as well. When I go out on book distribution, this is one of the verses that I ask people to read, because I tell them this knowledge, Rajavidya Rajaguyam Pavitramidam Uttamam Pratyaksha Vagamam Dharmyam Susukam Kartum Avyayam, that this knowledge It's the king of education. There's a lot of educational systems in the world, departments, and most of them, they teach you how to be a good work unit, right? How to make money, how to do this and that. But they don't tell you how to control the mind. But the mind is considered the center of, you can say, where we get our ideas from. It's considered like a sponge. Throughout our day, it absorbs so much garbage, you know. This person said this to me, this person looked at me differently, I didn't get the recognition that I deserve. And then throughout the day, you start thinking about that. So instead of having a peaceful mind, you're so absorbed in negativity, and it brings you down. And then Srila Prabhupada, he quotes this verse, "For man, mind, or woman, the mind is the cause of bondage, and mind is the cause of liberation. Mind absorbed in sense objects is the cause of bondage, and the mind detached from sense objects is a cause of liberation." When the mind is absorbed in materialistic things, it becomes bondage to him. He becomes attached to it. But the same mind, when it's detached from sense objects, is the cause of liberation. So the mind, it is our best friend, our worst enemy. And unfortunately, there's so many people that put so much trust in their mind. Whatever the mind says, people follow it. Like a dog. If you ever observe a dog, it doesn't know how to control its mind or its senses. When it hears when it hears a bell, or when it hears some type of sound, it goes to that direction right away. When it smells something, the nose immediately tracks where the scent is from. And when there's an intruder, it starts barking. So similarly, the mind needs to be controlled. There's mental slavery, and then there's mental liberation. And a lot of people, they're not aware that they're actually shackles to their mind. They're bound up. The mind, it dictates, go here, go there, buy this, buy that. And people, they don't know how to say no to the mind. Just like, Dimitri Prabhu, he used this example that the mind says, take one more scoop of ice cream, take another one. And then when you get that tummy ache, you start blaming, why did I take one more extra scoop? But who do you blame? You blame the mind. Therefore, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he says, when you wake up, you beat the mind 100 times with shoes. And when you go to bed, you beat the same mind 100 times with the broomstick. So you can imagine how much control we should take of the mind. And then there's a verse here. Bandhur atmanastasya yena maiva jita anatas manastu shatruv ve vatru maiva shatruvat. For him who has conquered the mind is the best of friends. But for one who has failed to do so, his mind will remain the greatest enemy. And when I go on book distribution, this is one of my favorite questions. I ask them, who is your best friend and your worst enemy? And if they're a couple, or if they're married, they'll look at each other, yeah, she's my best friend, he's my best friend. And I tell them, what about your worst enemy? And they say, oh, I don't have a worst enemy. I'm a very nice person. So then I tell them, what if the best friend that you have is the same as your worst enemy, it's the same person? They say, what? So I make them read this verse here, and they realize it's true. We're living with a friend or an enemy. And a lot of people, you don't know what type of state of mind they're in. They're smiling, it looks like they have their life together, but when you dig deeper than that, they're moments away from crumbling, They're in bad shape mentally. So the mind needs to be controlled at all times. Just like there's a picture in the Bhagavad Gita, there's 5 horses, there's a chariot, there's the reins, and then there's the driver, and then the passenger. This is a very nice portrait because it explains what is this body. So the chariot represents the body. The horses represent the five senses. The sense of sight, smell, touch, taste, and hear. And the reins that control the horses is the mind. And the driver that's controlling the reins is the intelligence. And the passenger is aloof from all of these. The passenger is different from the driver. He's different from the horses. He's different from the carriage, the chariot. So the passenger is the soul, the Atma. And it has nothing to do with the mind, the intelligence, the senses. It's transcendental. Let me ask you guys a question. Before getting in your car and driving, what is the first thing that you need? Destination? Okay. Anyone else? Seatbelt. Okay. Gas? Okay.
Key.
Key? Okay. What about you?
Driving skills.
Driving skills. Intention. License and keys. All of these are correct, but he got it. You need a destination. You need a destination. You need to know where you're going. So this life it represents a journey. Do we know where we're going? Do we know how we're getting there? Not only that, but how many people are we bringing with us? A lot of young people that I see today, they look very lost. They don't have a sense of purpose in life. Therefore, they indulge in a lot of destructive behavior, drinking and all of this. And Arjuna, he asked Krishna, what impels a person to do something as if by force, even when he knows it's not right for him? So Krishna, he tells him it is lust only, Arjuna. And then Krishna, he says that the mind, the senses, and the intelligence are the sitting places of this eternal enemy in the form of lust. Imagine that. The mind, the intelligence, and the senses. And this is what makes the subtle body. And then so a destination. There's a car right next to me where I parked. And he said, not all those that are wandering are lost. And I was just kind of laughing because it doesn't mean you're lost. If you don't know where you're going, And there's this romantic idea that it's not the destination, it's the journey, right? But when you think about it, you're wasting gas, you're wasting time. You're going around in circles. And a lot of people, they say, I just do whatever. So there's this analogy. If you're driving, you may follow all the rules of the road properly, the speed limit, following the stop signs, stoplights, stopping for pedestrians. But if you don't have a destination, where are you going? See? So people might say, I'm a good person, I follow the rules, I don't hurt anybody, but where are you going after this life? This life is very temporary. Padam padam vipadam natesham. That this material world, there's danger in every step. I was distributing books today at La Jolla Park, and there was this little kid. He was walking. He was probably like 10, He already had balance in walking. He was walking, and then he slipped, and he fell on his butt. See? So we don't know when death comes. So we should use this human life very seriously. And it says that beyond birth and death, there's disease, and then there's old age. And Srila Prabhupada explains that old age is a sign that death is coming. But it's not just old age, but we don't know when our day is going to come. And a lot of people, they try to make plans, I'm going to have 4 more years. I'm going to have 1 more year. But there's no guarantee that tomorrow is going to come. I was this material world is full of maya or illusion, you know. And people, they partake, they put so much, they invest their time in something temporary, you know. And so I asked this old man, I said, "Excuse me, sir, have you found the answers to life yet?" And he said, "Yes." So I asked him, "What's the goal of life? Why are we here?" And he looked at me with such shock, like nobody has asked him this before. So I asked him, "Please explain to me, you know, what is the purpose of life?" And this 80-plus-year-old, he couldn't give me an answer. So, and a lot of people that don't understand that birth, it's not a good thing, actually. My spiritual master and I were driving to Los Angeles, and it takes about 2 hours to get there, right? Have you guys driven to LA? How was that drive there?
It says 2 hours, but it can also take 4 or 5
Yeah.
hours.
But like, how do you feel? Like your legs, your body? Tired. So if it's 2 hours in that hellish condition, you know, you could move, you could take your seatbelt out, you could stretch. But when you're in the womb, you're in an airtight sack. You can't breathe. There's worms biting you, you know. And you're kicking, yelling, "Please let me out." And the mother's thinking, "Oh, how cute, you know. My baby is kicking," but it's actually suffering. So the living entity takes birth in the womb and stays there for 9 months. And Srila Prabhupada, he explains that if one is very sinful, he may not be delivered. And then now there's this thing called abortion, you know. So even if the living entity wants to get out, based on its karma and the mother, it may not take birth for another 3 more births. So you're in a hellish condition for 9 times 3, 21 months in that bag full of urine and feces. And if the mother eats something spicy, you feel that. So birth is not a good thing. And at the park, there was a group of people. You know what they were? Your friendly neighborhood atheists. You know, and I was looking at them. They were all adults, stuck on their phone, just leaning back, not thinking about, you know, the next life. But this human form of life, it has a purpose, and that purpose is to, you can say, liberate oneself from the bondage of karma, or bondage of birth and death. The human beings were different from animals because we can ask questions. Who am I? Why am I here? Where did everything come from? A dog doesn't ask this type of question. He asks, "Oh, where's my food?" My spiritual master, he told me there was some bogus yogi, and he asked him, interview asked him, "What is the definition of love?" You know. So everyone's expecting something profound from this yogi, and you know what the yogi said? Love is after coming home from a hard day's work, you open your door and there's your dog waiting for you. That's not love, you know. The dog has been cooped up in the house, in the apartment all day. He's just waiting for you to feed him. So many people that have all these silly ideas. But then Krishna, he says, "Manushya mam sahasreshu kaschid yatati siddhaye." That means that out of many thousands among men or women, one may endeavor perfection. But then he says, "Yitatmat api siddhanam kaschin mam veti tatvataha." And out of those who achieve perfection, only one hardly knows me in truth. So who is Krishna? You know, and when you distribute books, people look at you, you know. "Oh, I know Bhagavad Gita. I know Krishna." But when I ask them, who is Krishna to you? And they think Krishna is just an ordinary person, you know, a very great speaker, someone, anyway. And then Krishna says, "Avaja nanti mam muda." And it means that fools deride him when he comes as a human being. But Krishna is not an ordinary human being. Who is Krishna? Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishna is our best friend. And a lot of people, they think that their wife is their best friend, their pet is their best friend. But one day, that person is going to betray you. Somehow or other, that person will have to separate you in time, in due course, or by force, or they leave you for another person. And that causes so much heartache. Actually, this idea of heartache, it's actually worse. A lot of people say it's worse than mental diseases. I ask a lot of people on book distribution, I tell them, what's the greatest suffering that a human being can feel? You know what their response is? Loneliness. You know, people write songs about love, about, you know, and after becoming a devotee, you just kind of giggle and laugh at this idea, you know. I'm going to find Mrs. Right, Mr. Right. But at the end, Krishna says, Aham mrityu sarva harishchaham. I am all devouring death, and I take everything away. So then, what are we left with? We're left with a broken heart. We're left with loneliness. We're left to our own devices, the mind. And so if the mind isn't your best friend, it brings you to a hellish condition. So people, even the demigods, they don't know who Krishna is. There's a pastime of Lord Brahma. Lord Brahma is the first created being in this universe. He was created by Lord Vishnu. And Brahma, you can say he's a secondary creator. He's the engineer of this universe. And Brahma, he was also ignorant of who Krishna was. When Krishna appeared as a little cowherd boy in Vrindavan, he wanted to test Krishna. So what did he do? Brahma, Lord Brahma, he took his friends and his calves and he put them under this spell, put them to sleep, and then he hid them in a cave. So he wanted to see what Krishna will do. And it's described that a moment of Brahma was just 1 year for us human beings. So Lord Brahma, his duration of life is different from us. It's described that 1 year or 1 day of Brahma is equal to 8.6 million years for us. So we can't conceive that. That's just like if you see an ant, you know, and you ask the ant, hey, do you know what 1 year is? How can they conceive that? An ant lives for maybe 2 weeks or so. So if you tell them we live for 100 years, let's say, how will the ant understand that? So similarly, the demigods, they live for billions of years. So we can't understand that because in this Kali Yuga, we're limited to being only alive for 100 years. So Brahma came back to see what Krishna did. And what did Krishna do? He expanded himself into all the different cowherd boys and calves. And when Krishna went to their mothers, they loved their son more than their original sons. Why? Because it's Krishna. Krishna can imitate anyone perfectly. So, and then when Lord Brahma came before Krishna, he was very puffed up. He said, I'm Brahma, you know, I know everything. And then Krishna, he called all the Brahmas in the universe. All the Brahmas, thousands, hundreds, millions of them. Because there's this material world is described as only 1/4 of Krishna's creation. This dark material world is 1/4 of Krishna's creation. And the rest, the 3/4, are all spiritual worlds. So we're in a tiny, dark corner of the universe and we're thinking we're so smart, you know, things like that. So Lord Brahma, he apologized to Krishna, he offered his obeisances and he asked for forgiveness. And Krishna, he's very kind and merciful to his devotees. He doesn't take, so Krishna, he's an interesting person. He excuses offenses that are towards him, but towards his devotees, he takes that very seriously. So we should understand that. When we offend Krishna's devotees, we should understand so it's not a very nice thing. And so even King Indra, he was blinded by his opulence. Do you know who King Indra is? Do you know? King of heaven, King Indra. He has all the opulence of all the heavenly worlds, and he was blinded by this so-called opulence. When he approached Krishna, he wanted to kill all of Krishna's friends, all of his family, all of his cows. Imagine that. And then, so this temple is called New Govardhan. If you look at the four corners, there's Krishna lifting a hill, Govardhan Hill. So this is that pastime. King Indra, he tried killing all of the inhabitants of Braj, or Vrindavan. And what did Krishna do to protect his friends? He lifted Govardhan Hill for 7 days and 7 nights. There's no human being, there's no one that can even do this. And it's described that Krishna lifted this hill like it was a piece of mushroom. And you know, Srila Prabhupada, he saw this statue of Atlas. Have you guys seen that? He's lifting the globe on his shoulders or on his back, and you know, he's very muscular and it looks like he's trying very hard. And then Krishna says, oh no, Krishna's not like that. You know? Like Krishna, he's lifting or he's making unlimited planets flow in outer space as Krishna. You know. So it says that the spiritual sky, in the spiritual world, every step is a dance. Every word is a song, and every day is a festival. That's where we belong. We don't belong in this temporary material world. But a lot of people, they're trying to make this very comfortable, a living space. And I use this example in my last class. Suppose you have some business to do, but you're only staying at a certain location for a few days. You forget your business and you start decorating this apartment. And eventually you have to get kicked out. You know, imagine how much time is wasted. You know, not only did you not finish your business, but you wasted time decorating this apartment. So similarly, that apartment is compared to this body. You know, how long will we have it for? And so much people, they work so hard trying to keep this body fit, nice, attractive, but okay, let me ask this like this. Let me ask it. There's a principle, or there's something that the soul depends, I said it. There's something that the body depends on. What is that? The soul, see? And like today, His Grace Dharma said to Prabhu, he said if you're teaching at a university and you start talking about God or the soul, they kick you out. See? So yeah, there's no freedom in, and Srila Prabhupada, he would call it modern educational system, they're spiritual slaughterhouses. And so the soul is so important, but they don't teach you about the soul. But the Bhagavad Gita talks about the soul in great depth. It says that the soul can never be cut to pieces by any weapon, nor withered by the wind, moistened by water, burned by fire, or withered by the wind. The soul is indestructible, the soul is eternal, and that soul is who we are, right? Just like you were saying, people, they misidentify themselves with the body. If you ask someone, who are you? They'll tell you what reflects in the mirror. I'm a man, I'm a woman, I'm black, I'm white, I'm Asian, I'm European, I'm even Christian, I'm Muslim, I'm Jew, I'm atheist, but that's not us. We're the soul within this body. And as soon as the soul leaves the body, what happens to the body? Yeah, it dies. It's a dead corpse, and nobody cares for a dead corpse. But that important soul, they're not teaching that. So it's a very waste of education, actually. Srila Prabhupada, he says that intelligence means to know the difference between matter and spirit and the owner of both. In this material world, we're not very happy, you know. I was in Hawaii, for those that don't know, and it's a vacation spot, right? People go there to clear their minds, to escape their job, to escape their relationships, you know. And while we were there, the same thing I saw. People were sad, unhappy, miserable. And then after wasting so much money going to Hawaii, what do? They're forced to go back to they're forced to go back to work somewhere that they hate. And the Lord is flawless because he is without attraction or hatred. Krishna is transcendental above these three modes: goodness, passion, and ignorance. But people say if Krishna, if he's equal to everyone, why does he favor the devotees? So Srila Prabhupada explains that a father may have 4 sons. 3 of these sons are rascals. They only go to the father for money, right, when they want something. But one son, he's very affectionate towards his father. So the father will naturally have more compassion, or he will lean towards that one son. So similarly, we're all children of Krishna, daughters of Krishna, sons of Krishna. Excuse me. But how do we feel towards Krishna? Do we go to Krishna just for material things? I want wealth. I want to get married. You know, I want to pass my exam. I want to get a better grade. I want to graduate. I want to this and that. But Krishna, he can fulfill all these material desires. But what he's searching for is bhakti, that loving surrender to Krishna. And Krishna, he's our best friend, like I mentioned earlier. He doesn't cheat us, just like a boss that we might have, right? He doesn't overwork us. He reciprocates with his devotees. And there's a verse here by Chanaka Pandit. He says, Ekash Chandra Tamohanta Nachatara Sahasrashaha. So that means it's better, one moon is better than millions of stars. What does that mean?
You know yourself, you know.
Okay.
Instead of looking out, you see.
Okay. Close. So you have one moon is better than having, or one moon is better than having millions of stars.
It's so bright.
Thank you. So one moon is sufficient enough to illuminate darkness. And comparing these little twinkle, little stars compared to the moon, it's nothing. And Srila Prabhupada compares these so-called scholars and learned people to be like glowworms compared to the Vedas, you know. Glowworms, they might have some glow at night, but when the sun comes up, they can't even see him. They step on. And so, Srila Prabhupada, he says one devotee that's pure in Krishna consciousness is better than having millions of followers. So similarly, Krishna is looking for one pure devotee. One devotee that can actually surrender to Krishna and not surrender to the demands of the mind, his friends, his family, this and that. Krishna can award liberation to anyone, but he doesn't award bhakti to anyone. He doesn't award pure devotional service. And so what we're doing here is devotional service. We're learning about Krishna. We're reading about Krishna. So instead of listening to, I don't know, I haven't listened to like songs in a long time, you know, I'm like, I don't know, Blink-182 or 50 Cent, you know, instead of listening to these nonsense, you know, we're listening to Kirtan, we're glorifying Krishna. We're singing about Krishna's glories, you know. So that's transcendental. And then how rare is it to find a devotee? Bahunam janmanam anti gyanavan mam prapadyate. Bahunam, that means many. Janmanam, repeated births and deaths. So the translation is, after many births and deaths, he who is actually in knowledge surrenders unto me, knowing me to be the cause of all causes and all that is. Such a great soul is very rare. Mahat Atma, great soul. Sudurlabha, very rare. So you, devotees, are very rare. How many? There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's 10 of us here. And how many are outside? See? So you are compared to the moons and outsider stars. So yeah. And then Krishna, he says, after many births, after one is trying to cultivate knowledge, they actually understand who Krishna is, his position. And then he can transcend birth and death. Amazing, huh? Imagine conquering the mind, having the purpose of life at our fingertips. And all we got to do is just follow what Srila Prabhupada has given us. Okay, is there any questions on this verse before we move? Yes?
Can I just translate?
Sure.
Krishna. Hare Krishna. You mentioned so many universes. Is it written somewhere how many total universes, and every universe has one Brahma to maintain it? How many total universes we have?
Srila Prabhupada, he uses the word innumerable. So we don't know.
We don't know.
Just like they said, can you count how many waves there are in the ocean? No.
Oh.
If you count 50 million, there's more coming, so you can't count. So similarly, Krishna has unlimited incarnations, but the Srimad Bhagavatam, it focuses on the main ones. Does that make sense? Yeah. So there's unlimited universes we can't count. We can't keep track.
No, I understand. The reason I was asking because so I was watching some video or read somewhere. It said this universe has 110 billion galaxies. So they came up with a rough estimate. So I was wondering if there are so many galaxies in this universe, how many universe roughly would be there? But I understand. It's
just like we're reading the 5th canto right now, and it has all the measurements between the sun and the surface of Earth. It's incredible. So similarly, Srila Prabhupada says, if one, I'll use this example. If you're solving an equation, and if the first step is wrong, you may work at it for hundreds and billions of years, but the conclusion is wrong. So similarly, if you can say, accept statements from people that are not connected to the 4 bona fide sampradayas, they're just kind of speculating. So, yeah. So we take Shastra, Guru, and Sadhu, their knowledge, So yeah, so we have to be very careful who we listen to.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yes, Dhanavari Mataji?
Hare Krishna. Very nice class, Prabhu. You covered so many things. I'm very, very thankful and grateful to your class. My question, I have a small question. Is there bhakti in Swargaloka?
Okay. So the higher planetary system we follow, you said Arti?
No, bhakti in Swargaloka.
Okay. So we were just reading in the 5th canto that even the demigods, they're anxious to take birth on earth, but not only on earth, but in Bharatavarsha in India. Because, and he was explaining that even King Indra, he forgets who Krishna is sometimes, due to the opulence in Swargaloka and all the different heavenly planets. So they are devotees, but they're mixed devotees. I hope that helped Dhanavari Mataji.
Yes, Prabhu, very much so. Thank you. And one more, if you don't mind.
Sure,
one
of course,
question.
go ahead.
you just mentioned that there are 4 sampradayas, so Rudra, Lakshmi, and Vishnu, that one, right? So my question is, if someone follows like Rudra Sampradaya, that's still bona fide?
The thing is, you have to follow their acharyas, Ramanujacharya, Madhvacharya, whichever line you're in, you should follow the great saints and teachers. You know, Srila Prabhupada, in Nectar of Devotion, the word acharya means holy teachers. So if you do belong to one of these 4 sampradayas, the Brahma Sampradaya, Shri Sampradaya, Rudra, and the Kumar Sampradaya, see, the difficulty with that is that it's very, you can say, rare to find someone that's actually practicing the principles or the traditions from these sampradayas. Whereas for us, Srila Prabhupada, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Bhakti Vinod Thakur, these are all coming from the Brahma Sampradaya or Gaudiya Sampradaya. So I'm not too sure about the other sampradayas, Mataji, but if they are following the traditions coming from, you know, ancient, then yeah, they're bona fide.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. But I haven't met anyone that from these 4 sampradayas. You had a question?
Thank you, Hare Bol, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, but is it on?
If it's, you hold it, and then if the light is on.
Oh, okay. Well, you said that this world is, it's not good to be here, but is this not one of Krishna's realms too? Is it not possible to see beauty in Krishna in this realm and appreciate this realm for what it is, so it may not be our permanent resting place? Should we not appreciate the beautiful souls and beautiful things that Krishna has brought us, as long as we see him behind them?
That's a very nice question. Yes, we can see the beauty in this world, but we shouldn't be attached to it. Srila Prabhupada, he says, it's pretty heavy, but he said, even if one is attracted to one sunset, he can come back to this material world again. So we should learn, in the 10th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna describes how we can see him. I am the pure taste in water. I am the original fragrance of the earth. Among weapons, I'm the thunderbolt, and among aquatics, I am the shark. He starts listing of how we can see Krishna in this material world. So yes, but only a devotee can see that. See, because a devotee, he knows that this is not the goal of life. My spiritual teacher, he uses this nice example. If I give you a piece of coal and I ask you to clean it, is that possible?
Well, no. You can only disintegrate it. You can only disintegrate it.
Exactly. Because the nature of coal is dirty. You can't clean the towel that you're using with that becomes dirty. So similarly, Krishna says this world is full of miseries. It's full of birth, disease, old age, and death. So, and they would say, don't give up the permanent for the temporary, or you lose both. But for devotees, we can see this world nicely. We can see each individual soul. We can see this is Krishna's creation. But that vision, sometimes the living entities compared to like a drop on a lotus leaf. It's very, one wrong slip, and it goes off. So similarly, the attraction in this material world, we shouldn't lose sight of our real goal. If you like this world is compared, this is, sorry to use this as an example, but Srila Prabhupada, one time he says that, just like there's a lot of beautiful people here, right? But compared to the beauty here to the heavenly planets, it's 100 times more beautiful in the heavenly planets. And the beauty in the heavenly planets compared to the spiritual world, Vaikuntha, is 1,000 times more beautiful. And comparing the highest planetary system, spiritual planet, Vrindavan, Goloka Vrindavan, they make the beautiful people here look like toads. So the spiritual world is millions and billions and 10 times more beautiful than here. So yeah, if you can, don't lose sight of the track, but if you can always keep Krishna in your mind, then that's beautiful. Yeah. Does that help?
Yeah,
Okay.
for the most part, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, even if this world, the reason why Krishna says it's not so good because it's temporary. Even if you try to make it a beautiful world and we leave this world, most of the people, they won't take care of it. And everything deteriorates here, Everything, if you don't take care of something, it's not gonna last very long. Yeah. Okay, I think we should end class right now. Arti is gonna start soon. But if you have any more questions, you can ask me or some of the other devotees. Okay. Thank you for your time. Granthara Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you. Hari Bol.